Okay, thanks everybody for coming to the screening tonight. Let's give a big round of applause first for the filmmakers. I have here with me May Merica. Thank you for joining us and congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Let's just start off. Can you just tell me a bit about the film itself and how it came together?
So the film is my graduation film from the London Film School. I really, really like horror films. I think they are a really good way to tell stories that are both like thought-provoking and emotion-provoking, but also like giving physical sensation. And I think they're really good to tell metaphors. Like if you look back in history, there are so many good horror films that are talking about race issues or like gender issues at the time where those subjects were not really trendy or approached. And they do that through the metaphor lens. And I think it's really through the horror lens, which allows people to like be entertained and not take it as like it's not too on the nose, but it's at the same time it's still pushing people to think about things. And so with my graduation film, I wanted to try and do that, to incorporate some element of drama, because I really like mixing genres. And so, yeah, I decided to try and make a horror film for my graduation. Yeah.
Cool, awesome. And I guess that leads pretty well into you combined the horror genre with a story about like pregnancy and anxiety. So how did you go about blending those two, using horror to kind of bring that out?
I think when people write films, they try to write about something that is personal to them. I was trying to think about, at the time, what was the emotions and thought that were the most important for me. And to make it personal, I thought if I should approach something that actually scares me. I think a lot of people are scared of not being loved, but I was thinking what is even worse than that, and I think it's not being able to give love. And especially as a woman, I feel like it's something that is really expected. We expect men to be strong and we expect women to be caring. And I was wondering if, as a woman, I would not be able to do that. How would that feel? So children, you're supposed to love them. You're supposed to have like an unconditional love for them. And I don't have any. I don't know if I want some, but the question that comes with having children are scaring me. Like I'm wondering about how difficult it would be to be responsible of another being's life. But on the other hand, I'm also really scared of not being able to have this unconditional love for anyone else than my potential child. So I wanted to explore that, and horror is a good way to do that, to explore fears. And I think pregnancy horror has a lot of like interesting element to it, because we can go the way of like physical body horror, but we can also go the way of like emotional and psychological horror. It's also making like, because of the hormones and everything, it's always difficult to know if a pregnant protagonist is reliable or not. And yeah, I liked having that coming to play in the story as well.
Great, yeah, and yeah, because that's an interesting idea of an unreliable protagonist a lot of the time, but you don't often see that framed in in a pregnancy sense. Was that something that you had from the beginning of the idea, or was that something you kind of developed through the process?
So I wanted us to identify with her, and basically, like at some point, my goal was not for the audience to wonder, oh, is this real or not at the end. My goal was for the audience to identify with her, and whether or not it's real, feel for her. For them to wonder, what would I do in her situation? And I think as I edited the film, she became less reliable than she was in the script. But I think it adds to the whole paranoia that's coming into play in the film. And yeah, so it became more, like she became less and less reliable as I was editing it.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was the casting process like for the film?
So we had a lot of candidates. And initially, when I was looking at self-tapes, there was a candidate that I really, really loved. She was amazing, and she was picturing Ariane the way I imagined her when I was writing the script. And then after the self-tapes, we had another round where we were inviting our favorite actresses for an in-person audition. And she was amazing, but unluckily for her, Rachel showed up that day, and Rachel is the actress I finally picked. And Rachel she was a way stronger Ariane, in a sense, like she was more tough and maybe less like so-called feminine or like caring than you would expect. But I think that was very interesting because it creates a contrast between this image of like what a mother should be and what Ariane is. And yeah, Rachel is amazing. she's very charismatic. She understands really quick. And when I saw Rachel, I was like unable to pick anyone else. So I went for her in the end, and it's nice because it made me rethink about my character and redevelop her a bit differently. So yeah, casting had a big influence on the film in the end.
So Rachel making you rethink Ariane as a character, did that result in changes in the writing itself, or was it more how you approached it in the shooting?
It's more how I approached it in the shooting. The script didn't change much after the casting. It's more in like some details of the acting. Like for instance, in the baby shop, at some point we can see that despite the advice that she's been given, she's still like trying to do it her own way. And what I was trying to do with that is to make her a bit less of a victim and a bit more of someone who has an agency. Because I think in horror films, it's especially women films portraying women, unfortunately, because of sexism that is going around women as a victim in horror film. Sometimes it's difficult to identify with them. And I wanted male audience to be able to identify with her as well. And therefore, I thought that having her a bit more like rebellious and tough would, like in the way she's playing the character, would bring even more empathy from like a bigger audience.
Okay. How did you work with the design team to create the tone and the mood of that space?
So my production designer is really talented. Her name is Abby, and and I have a background in production design as well. So we talked a lot about like the space and how we want the space to feel like. So we wanted it to be a space that was claustrophobic, but at the same time a space that offers a lot of like room for scary things to happen. So there are like a lot of windows, a lot of like dark spaces where the danger can come from anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then we also gave a lot of importance onto the color palette of things. We used a lot of purple because it has a bit of a creepy element to it. And yeah, it's I also wanted Ariane to be a bit of a mix of the other different characters around her. So in one of the first scenes, we can see June with like this very motherly figure who wears blue, and then her friends with this very independent woman figure who wears red, and when you mix blue and red, you have purple. So a lot of like symbolism in terms of colors as well. And then I had a very, very good and talented makeup artist as well, Sophie, who took care of the monsters, and we worked very closely, all three of us together, Abby, Sophie, and I, with this color scheme and like how to create the space and how to shape the monster body filling this space.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Um, uh, can you discuss any other horror films or horror directors that were like a direct influence on this film?
Yes, I am a huge fan of Julia Ducournau.
Okay.
She made Titan, that won the Festival de Cannes like 2 years ago. And before that, she made another amazing film called Raw. And it's films that mix horror, drama, there are elements of comedy. It's talking a lot about female experience. And what I like about her film is that she's able to tell metaphors. So if you want to read it through a metaphorical lens, you can. But if you want to take it as face value, you can as well. And it can be entertaining and scary, but it can also be like very thought-provoking. So she's a big source of inspiration for me. And Ari Aster is quite similar. I think there are a lot of good horror director emerging at the moment, and I'm very excited about that because they're renewing the genre and putting a bit more, like I think it becomes more and more popular to watch horror. It's not just like a nerdy thing anymore, and I'm excited about that.
I'm glad you said Ari Aster actually, because the first time I watched the film, especially the fear of the smothering scene was extremely Ari Aster to me. I thought that was really, really well done.
Thank you.
I'll before we let you go, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Anything that you're like really dying to talk about that we haven't covered here in these questions?
I don't think so. No, I'm quite happy with what we covered. It was very nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just like one kind of takeaway for the film that.
So it's hard, like, because when you rewatch your film, I feel like right now I've been watching it with a very critical eye, and I was like, I would change this and that, and like I think that for my next film, I'd like to try and be even more like gut punching. It's also going to be a horror film, but I think I want to be even more condensed. But a positive takeaway that I take from all of this is like working with my team. I had, again, a very fantastic team of like a lot of female filmmaker. My director of photography is amazing as well, Sherry. And so Sherry, Abby, Sophie and I were working so closely together, and it was really nice to have some of their inputs that did influence some of my directing and some of the mise-en-scène. Each of them was giving me their opinion about their department, and they were giving me like some little tips that they think would improve the story from their perspective in their department. And it was really nice for me to see when I felt like it was relevant and when I felt like I should discard it. And that was a really good experience to learn when to be like focused on what I actually imagine first and when to be open to suggestions and work collectively on something.
That's great. That sounds like a good partnership to move forward with, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I will work with them again.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for everybody for listening. And this was really great. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thanks.